just this morning on Air Force One, President Trump really doubled down on it.
I offered to send U.S. troops into Mexico to take care of the cartels. She wants to know, is that true? Do you think I'm going to answer that question?
That's why I'm asking. We'll see.
I will answer it. It's true. Absolutely. Because they are horrible people that have been killing people left and right, they've made a fortune on selling drugs and destroying our people. We lost 300,000 people last year to fentanyl and drugs. If Mexico wanted help with the cartels, we would be honored to go in and do it. I told her that. I would be honored to go in and do it. The cartels are trying to destroy our country. Well, she's so afraid of the cartel she can't walk, so, that's the reason. And I think she's a lovely woman. But the president of Mexico is a lovely woman, but she is so afraid of the cartel.
You may recall this video from the day he was inaugurated on January 20th, when he designated Mexican drug cartels as foreign terrorist organizations.
This is actually an executive order designating the cartels and other organizations to be foreign terrorist organizations.
That's a big one.
Yes, sir.
People have wanted to do this for years. So they are now designated as terrorist organizations, foreign, and Mexico probably doesn't want that.
President Trump, if cartels are now going to be seen as foreign terror organizations, would you think about ordering U.S. Special Forces into Mexico to take them out?
Could happen. Stranger things have happened.
Look, I have no doubts that the cartels exert a lot of pressure and threats, even, and maybe even to the president of Mexico herself. I don't know that for a fact, but certainly the Mexican cartels are deeply embedded throughout Mexican society and their political life at many levels. That's a well-known, chronicled fact. So it's entirely plausible it's going up there. But to just say, well, the Mexican president is afraid, so I'm going to take care of it. Listen, this is just a potential huge problem. I remember during my last combat deployment, the fourth one of my career, when I went to Afghanistan, and we were going after the Taliban at that time. That was our enemy that we were going after then. And we during the Obama administration, they wanted to double down and use more force because what we had done up in the first, I guess it would have been 11 years up to that point, and he said, no, he was convinced that we just need to use more force because that is going to get the Taliban. That is going to finally get to them. And what we did is we put troops on the ground there, and we went into areas where we had never been before to try and root out and go into the source of where the Taliban were. Not only did that not work, not only did we suffer a lot of casualties, the Taliban grew as a result. They got more potent and more powerful and ended up taking over. And every time we would go into an area and we would start killing them, that all that did is turn them against us. And it actually recruited more people against us and then ultimately against the Afghan government. You don't want to recruit all that. But the bottom line is when you go into another area and then you take what's a bad situation and you're going to try to use military power and force to kill your way to success, it just almost never works. And every time you go into something like that, you will get a response. Do you really want to go in and take on the Mexican cartels and declare war against them? Does anybody think that that's going to be a nice, clean, easy thing? I think the answer is yes. That's not supposed to be a rhetorical question, but I think it kind of is, because I think the answer is yes. People do think that. They think that, yeah, we're this tough, big military power, and we've got all this capability. If we go in with these guys, we can kill them, and then all of a sudden the drugs are going to go away. They're not. It's just not going to happen. What you're going to end up doing is you're going to exploit. Now then, the cartel is going to turn their weapons and ammunition and their terror techniques, not just against maybe Mexican population, not just against Mexican politicians, but maybe against Americans. And then they may bring it to our soil, because I can tell you, just human beings, if you go in there and you start attacking somebody somewhere, they're not just going to go and cower down on their knees. We've seen that play out everywhere, whether that is in Iraq, whether it was in Libya, whether it was in Syria, whether it was in Iran, you name it. Every time we try to go in there, do you realize that we're still in Somalia to this day? We went in there in 1992, I think it was, when President Clinton first sent us in there on a humanitarian mission to try, and take care of the people, and then to get rid of the terrorists that were operating there. We're still there. We're still in many places in Africa. It's a never-ending situation. You just can't solve it with military. And instead of learning the lessons, we keep repeating the problem. President Trump ran on a platform that he wanted to end wars. We, of course, had some military on our border, and within certain contentions, that makes sense. That's certainly something we've been done before and could be done if the process is right and if it's well thought out. But see, we keep using military force everywhere. And now then, there's an issue that maybe we should put military in Washington, D.C. itself, because of what President Trump claims was a spike in violence, but that's not even true. In fact, I was on a news network this afternoon, and before my segment came on, the one immediately before that was looking at this situation, and they revealed that, in fact, there's been a 23% reduction in violent crime in the District of Columbia so far this year, and I think it was a 30-something%, or something equivalent, in reduction between the previous year. So the violent crime rate is actually going down in Washington. But somebody that President Trump heard of, he saw a news report that said where some guy was beat up, some Doge worker was beat up while he was trying to stop a carjacking. And so now Trump wants to respond by sending in military. That's the problem. Every time you see a problem, you see a military as the solution. And when you get into this mentality that's locked in there, you don't see non-military solutions to problems. You don't look for win-win solutions. You don't go to the hard work that takes time to listen to the other side, to examine a situation and say, all right, what can be done here that can satisfy your needs so that even if you're just placated, ideally something that would be a win-win that you would feel good about, because if you feel good about something, you're going to continue to go down a path that also works for me. See, that's something that can be sustained. That's something that can produce good outcomes long term for your side. You go in there and you try to solve everything with a damn barrel of a rifle or a bomb or a missile, and you compel somebody or use the economic leverage through tariffs or whatever to coerce and punish people for not doing what you want. You may sometimes get temporary compliance, but gritting teeth, and the first chance they get to undercut that, they will. And in the worst case, they don't just grin and bear it, but they fight back. And that's what we have here. So you don't have, even in those cases, you don't have sustained success. You have only minimal success to the absolute minimum amount that's necessary. And then the second that they can do something against you, they'll take it. And the second they can stop doing something you like, they'll stop doing it. And then you have to consider going back again. This is a terrible way to govern. This is not bringing peace to the United States. This is not bringing prosperity to the United States. This is not setting us up for long-term stability and making our lives better for both at home and lowering the chance for conflict abroad. It's doing the exact opposite. It's giving people motivation and reason to work against our interests. And I'm talking our friends as well as our adversaries. We're trying to make enemies of everybody. And this mentality has got to change, because if you keep going down this path, if you keep going down the road that says every solution has a military answer, anytime somebody does something I don't want, let's compel them and coerce them. All you're doing is increasing antagonism against us. You're giving others the motivation to work against our interests, and you're making our life harder. And you're making it less likely that we succeed, less likely that we prosper, less likely that we stay at peace. That's the danger here. So any one of these issues by itself can be taken, but when you can't take them by themselves, because they don't exist in isolation. They exist in the context of everything else that's happening. And in that context, there is some alert. It's warning. That's why I'm doing this show today on this topic by itself. You need to be concerned about this. We all do. And we need to take a step back, take a deep breath and say, this is not a good deal. America is in the position it's at in large measure because it has done this in the past, that it looks for at least its periods of time. Again, I'm not naive. I know that we have done a lot of bad things in our history and things that I'm not proud of, but we've also done a lot of really good things, and a lot of people have benefited from it. When we have done things the right way, when we have gone looking for win-win solutions that help the other country as well as ourselves, we have prospered. We have been at peace. And if we are good to our word, and if we have good, moral positions on something, then our adversaries understand where the lines are. They know where they can go and where they can't go, and they know where they can go to be cooperation with us, or at least to stay out of the target zone. And then if we stay good to that and let them live their lives in their place there without doing any, if they're not harming us, then they're willing to stay there in very often. But when there's no lines and there's no trust and nobody even knows what you stand for, and what they can see is that you're militarized and everything, it creates fear and uncertainty. And when people are fear and uncertain, it doesn't have the reaction that a lot of these advocates for the use of military want, which is to compel or coerce people into submission. That's just not how it works. It damn sure didn't work that way with us, did it? When the British learned that, didn't they? When they tried to compel and coerce us with economic means, with military means, we rebelled. And we all know how that worked out there. We're no different than anybody else. And now that we're trying to take on the role of the British Empire, folks, it didn't work for them, and it ain't going to work for us either. Don't prove that. Don't prove me right on this. We need to change course on this. And that starts with individuals. We've all got to do our part to stop just thinking militaristically and not being a big cheerleader for every time the president talks about using force on something. Quit cheerleading that stuff. Start challenging it instead, because it doesn't make any sense. It's not going to help us, and ultimately it's going to be harmful for all of us. Let's change course while we can. Let's don't keep going down this road, folks. It ain't going to work out well for us. Thank you very much. I appreciate you today on this short little episode. As a reminder, and especially for your friends who may like to get their information and their truth and stuff like this on podcasts, go to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podcast Addict, have them type in Daniel Davis Deep Dive, and they'll find us there. Also, for your friends who may like things in the written form, we've got that too. We're expanding our universe here. DanielDavisDeepDive.substack.com. And you'll find this information there. So we put out a lot of written information too. So really, however you want to get your information, be sure and seriously spread this around, because I know a lot of folks really like videos. Some other people really prefer written stuff. Some others just prefer the audio stuff. Make sure your friends know about all this stuff, because we need to make sure more people get the truth that you have, because we're going to remain unintimidated, uncompromised to bring everybody the truth they need. Thank you very much, folks, and we'll see you tomorrow on the Daniel Davis Deep Dive.